There are people who can be surrounded by warmth, by friends, by family, and still feel a quiet distance echoing inside them, not because they don't belong, not because the love around them isn't real, but because something within them has learned to stay slightly apart, observing life from an invisible step behind everyone else. They laugh at the right moments. They join the conversation. They blend. And yet, a soft ache lingers, a subtle awareness that they are somehow different. Even among the people they care about most, this silent loneliness is not loud. It does not announce itself. It hides between smiles, behind politeness, inside the spaces where they cannot fully express who they are. This documentary explores that feeling, the quiet estrangement that touches gentle, thoughtful souls who long to belong, yet struggle to feel at home in the world. There are people who walk into a room full of familiar faces, people who love them, people who would never intentionally push them away, and yet a soft distance settles inside their chest. Like a thin layer of fog separating them from the warmth around them, it's not a dramatic loneliness. It's quiet, subtle, almost polite. They participate in conversations, nod at the right moments, smile gently when someone makes a joke. To anyone watching, they seem present, grounded, part of the group. But inside, a different world unfolds, a world where they feel slightly out of rhythm with everyone else, as if they are learning a dance they were never formally taught. This distance is hard to explain. It doesn't come from lack of affection. It doesn't come from conflict. It doesn't come from not valuing the people around them. If anything, they care deeply, sometimes more deeply than they know how to express. Yet, even with that depth, they feel like observers, as if they are standing a few steps behind their own life, watching themselves participate in moments they cannot fully enter. For many, this feeling began so early that they don't remember a time when it wasn't there. Maybe as children, they were the sensitive ones, the ones who felt emotions intensely, who noticed things others overlooked, who needed time to adjust to the world. While other children jumped directly into laughter and play, they hesitated, watching first, studying the energy in the room, searching for safety before joining. From the outside, this looked like shyness. But inside, it was something quieter, a carefulness born from not knowing how much of themselves was welcome. As they grew older, the skill of observing became a habit, a shield, a place where they could exist without risking too much. They learned to mirror conversations instead of initiating them, to listen deeply instead of revealing themselves, to translate their inner world into simpler shapes so others would not feel overwhelmed. And because they became so good at adjusting, few people ever noticed the internal separation. The hidden distance became invisible even to them, not because it disappeared, but because it blended into the way they moved through life. They became the person who blends in everywhere and fits completely nowhere. Even among loved ones, they feel a slight mismatch, not rejection, but misalignment. Conversations flow, yet they feel like they're standing in a stream without getting wet. They laugh, yet feel a half-second delayed. They share space, yet remain emotionally elsewhere. They may find themselves wondering, why do I feel separate? Why can't I settle into the moment like everyone else? Why do I feel like a visitor in places where I should feel at home? This chapter explores that first recognition, the quiet realization that something inside them is not fully joining the world around them. And the truth is this: they are not detached because they don't care. They are detached because their inner world is rich, complex, and rarely mirrored back to them with accuracy or depth. They feel like outsiders because the parts of them that make them who they are, the sensitivity, the introspection, the quiet awareness, are often invisible to the people they love. So they learn to exist in two places at once, in the room and slightly outside of it. They are present enough not to worry others, but distant enough to protect the parts of themselves that still wait to be understood. This is the beginning of the silent loneliness, not loud, not desperate, but gently persistent, like a soft ache under the ribs. A loneliness that emerges not from lack of people, but from lack of resonance. The feeling of being out of place, even among loved ones, doesn't suddenly appear in adulthood. It has roots, quiet, subtle, often unspoken roots, planted long before a person understands what belonging truly means. For many, the estrangement begins in childhood, in moments so small that no one else would have recognized their importance. A child expresses excitement, but someone responds distractedly. A feeling is shared, but met with impatience. A question is asked, but brushed aside. These are not dramatic traumas, no shouting, no rage, no cruelty, just small emotional mismatches, gentle fractures in connection, where the child learns that their inner experience doesn't always land softly in the outside world. And so, bit by bit, they begin to retreat inward, not fully, not all at once, but quietly, subtly, almost gracefully. They learn to observe instead of participate. They learn to think before speaking. They learn to test the emotional temperature of every room before stepping into it. Being themselves becomes something they ration, carefully, cautiously, to avoid disrupting anyone else's balance. This early emotional choreography shapes the belief, I must adjust myself to be understood. Over time, this belief deepens. They become experts at masking, not in a deceptive way, but in a protective one. They share a version of themselves that is easier for others to digest, compressing their depth into smaller, safer forms. The sensitive parts of them, the ones that feel so intensely, the ones that notice everything, are kept hidden. Not because they are unwanted, but because they were never fully mirrored back. A child who grows up feeling unmirrored learns something powerful and painful. My inner world is mine alone. Psychologically, this creates a pattern where authenticity becomes risky. They begin to believe that showing their true thoughts and emotions will only lead to misunderstanding or discomfort. And so they become adaptive, fluid enough to blend in wherever they go, yet unable to land fully anywhere. As they grow older, these adaptations evolve into identities. The thoughtful one, the quiet one, the strong one, the independent one, the observant one. Roles that protect them from being misunderstood, but also isolate them from being known. In adolescence, the sense of estrangement often sharpens. While others find belonging through shared interests, trends, or laughter, they look on from a slight distance, feeling like they inhabit a parallel world, not better, not worse, just different. And because they rarely express this inner difference, no one around them realizes it exists. Loved ones assume they are fine, included, connected, present, never noticing the thin veil between their body in the room and their heart elsewhere. This is the invisible beginning of the silent loneliness, when a person learns to participate in life without fully feeling part of it. As adults, this pattern persists. They may have close relationships, real connections, and people who genuinely care. But emotionally, they still feel like they are translated versions of themselves, as if the real self is too intricate to place into words. And this is where the estrangement truly takes root, not in others' failure to understand them, but in their belief that they must remain partially hidden to stay safe. It is an emotional self-preservation that becomes habitual, a quiet separation between who they are internally and who they allow the world to see. Over years, this becomes a kind of emotional exile, surrounded by people yet alone in perception, loved yet misunderstood, included yet disconnected, seen yet not truly known, not because they are strange, but because someone like them needed understanding long before they ever had the words to ask for it. And so, the origin of the estrangement is not a moment. It is a slow drift, a gentle widening of space between their inner world and the world outside. A space that grows until one day they realize they feel lonely even among the people they love most. Inside every person who feels strange even among loved ones, there is a quiet conflict, a deep, private tug-of-war between longing and fear. A longing to be understood, to be emotionally known, to rest fully in the presence of others. And a fear just as powerful that if they reveal too much, they will confirm what they have always suspected, that their inner world is too different, too intense, or too complex for others to hold. This internal battle is not dramatic. It does not erupt. It simmers softly, like a low, steady ache beneath the ribs. On the outside, they appear calm, collected, thoughtful. But inside, they navigate every interaction with an invisible sensitivity. They want connection, desperately, even. But when the moment comes to open up, something inside tightens, a small, silent recoil. As if their heart has learned to flinch before they even understand why. They analyze every word before speaking. They soften their emotions to make them easier to receive. They hold back the questions that reveal too much of their depth. They rehearse vulnerability but rarely release it. Because somewhere inside, fear whispers your truth might be too heavy, your emotions might be too much, your strangeness might be unrelatable. This fear doesn't come from imagination. It comes from experience, often early experiences where authenticity was met with confusion, dismissal, or misinterpretation. And so, they learned to remain partially invisible. The battle becomes clearest in intimate relationships. They crave closeness, not surface closeness, but emotional resonance. The kind where they no longer feel like an outsider in their own life. Yet, when someone gets close enough to see their unfiltered self, they instinctively pull away, retreating into the familiar safety of distance. This creates a painful paradox. They long for the very thing they fear. They fear the very thing they long for. And so, they exist in a kind of emotional in-between, close enough to love, distant enough to feel safe. People around them sometimes sense this quiet conflict. A partner might say, "I feel like you're holding something back." A friend might comment, "You always seem a little far away." Family might wonder why they drift, even when surrounded by affection. But the truth is simple. They are not withholding out of lack of love. They are withholding because they care too deeply to risk breaking the fragile balance. Their depth is not the problem. Their fear of overwhelming others is. In this internal battle, they often carry the emotional weight alone. When life becomes heavy, they rarely share it. They convince themselves it's easier to remain silent than risk being misunderstood. They become the strong one, the listener, the one who absorbs rather than expresses. But even strength grows tired. Even silence has limits. As the years pass, a question begins to surface inside them, gently, slowly, like something waking up after a long sleep. What if I am not too much? What if I was simply never given the space to exist fully? This question marks the beginning of transformation, because beneath the fear, beneath the distance, beneath the quiet estrangement, there is a profound desire to belong without shrinking, to be loved without translating themselves, to sit in a room full of people they care about and finally feel at home inside their own skin. The battle inside them is not about choosing between distance and closeness. It is about learning that authenticity is not a risk. It is the only path to real belonging. And as this realization grows, something within them begins to shift, not loudly, not suddenly, but with gentle courage. The courage to reveal one honest sentence. The courage to share one unfiltered thought. The courage to let someone see the parts of them that have lived too long behind emotional glass. This chapter is the beginning of that courage, a soft but powerful step toward being seen, and finally, belonging. In the end, the silent loneliness of those who feel out of place, even among the people they love, is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of depth. A sign of a heart that feels the world more intensely than most. A sign of a mind that has lived too long in observation and not long enough in its own truth. For so many years, they believed something was wrong with them. They believed they were wired differently, quietly misaligned, destined to stand one step outside of the warmth they helped create for others. But slowly, gently, something begins to shift. They start to realize that what they called strangeness was simply sensitivity. What they called distance was self-protection. What they called not belonging was a life lived without the safety to show who they really were. And when this understanding settles in soft as dust, steady as breath, the world around them begins to feel different. Not because the world changed, but because they finally allow themselves to step into it without disguise. They learn that belonging is not found in perfect harmony with others, but in the courage to bring their full inner world to the surface unedited, unshrunk, unhidden. And when they do, something remarkable happens. The people who truly love them do not step back. They step closer. Conversations deepen. Connections soften. The invisible barrier that once kept them apart begins to dissolve, not through force, but through honesty, delicate, trembling honesty. The silent loneliness, once so familiar, begins to loosen its grip. It doesn't vanish all at once. It fades like a long winter, slowly making room for warmth. And they discover that home was never a place or a group or a moment. Home was the space inside them that they had forgotten how to inhabit while trying to fit into a world that rarely saw their depth for what it truly was. Now, they return to that inner home, step by step, breath by breath with a softness they once reserved only for others. The truth becomes clear. You were never the strange one. You were simply the quiet one in a loud world, the introspective one in a shallow room, the deep one among surfaces, the mirror that reflected everything, yet felt unseen yourself. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to be known. And when you allow yourself to be seen, truly seen, the distance evaporates. The loneliness softens, and you finally realize you have always belonged. Not because they understood you perfectly, but because your heart finally stopped standing outside itself. That is the moment the journey ends, not with noise, not with applause, but with a quiet truth settling gently inside you. You are home now. You are a ihiri, and you are no longer alone within yourself.